Okay, we are to the point of assembling the nest itself. This is a standard back, what we consider a standard back. It comes pre-assembled from the factory this way. The flaps or the curtains on the bottom is where the eggs are going to roll through. So we're going to take one of our plastic wall partitions, dividers, set it into our cross arm. Going to take it this way with the flange to the back. We're going to line it up on both sides, both side walls, and it just slides into place here. And then you just keep repeating that process on down the line. Okay, so now we've got our backs and our walls in. Now we can take our pre-assembled nest floors and nest pads. We're going to work those into the system. We're going to set that front lip of the nest wire bottom on that rail, and then we're going to just set it down on these tabs on the plastic walls. The edge of the floor on both sides, and then you just keep proceeding on down the line. Okay, so now that we've got our walls, backs, floors, and nest pads in, we're ready to put the nest front on. That goes in place. Go inside the nest, and there's a track that slides in down here at the bottom. And we want to make sure that we catch, using this inside lip here, we want to take it to make sure that seats down into that nest pad to help hold the pad in place. So we are now that we've got our walls, our floors, our backs, our nest fronts in, we're ready to put our expeller tubes in. We've got, on this exact scenario, we've only got 2 nests on this expeller. So for every nest, we need 4 clamps to hold that expeller panel. So I'm going to slide 4, and then I'm going to put 4 more on. So I've got 4 for each nest section. And then I'm going to slide this down, get them into the section that they belong into. And they'll get spaced out here. You'll see that here in just a moment. Okay, so now that we've got our nest assembled, we've put our expeller pipes in, we've got our clamps in each nest section. We're going to go ahead and attach it to our drive here. So we've got, the pipe is already slid in place. We'll put a washer and a nut there, but this is what the drive looks like before we slide the pipe on. That round pipe just slides over that adapter and bolts right together. Okay, so when we bolt this expeller tube onto our drive, it is intended for that tube to smash down on there to give it a little extra strength or bite to the system. So now that we've got our expeller pipes attached to our drives, we've got our clamps hanging on in each nest. We are at the point that we are adding our expeller panels in place, but we're just going to put them in just so they're attached. We're going to leave them loose so everything still spins freely. It's a longer carriage bolt than we've used previously. We're going to come through the back side of the clamp, through the expeller panel. We're going to put in a large washer. We're going to come through the front of that clamp, and we are going to attempt to get that bolt nut started. And once it's started is good enough at this point. So again, we're just going to come through the back of the clamp, through the panel, washer, through the front of the clamp, start our nut. Okay, so we are at our expeller drive. Everything is pre-wired. Control panel gets mounted on the bottom side of this. We've got an override switch, and I'll explain that here in a moment. We've got our manual, automatic. The automatic is for when you're on a day-to-day basis, your controller's operating the expellers. We're going to leave it in the manual position for now because we need to override the system to be able to get everything set up. We've got an open close switch, so you can open, off, and a close. So what we want to do is we want to get our expeller panels set in the proper position. We want to run the nest to the closed position until it hits the limit switch. Okay, so we've got our expeller drive set to our closed limit. The easiest way to set our panels so they're all even is we're going to take our expeller panel, pull it out here to where we consider it closed. Everybody's going to have a slight difference of opinion. If it should be here, if it should be here. I like it here. Again, it's opinion or it's a personal preference. So I'm setting it here. I'm going to go up here and I'm just going to tighten my clamp. Once you've got it all tight, you should be fairly even. If you're off a little bit, as you can see, I've got a little bit of a slope here. You'll have to back those screws off just enough to rotate them back up a little bit. Okay, so we are going to run the expellers to the open position so the birds would be able to get in there. The reason for doing this at this point is just to make sure our limit switches are set properly. Okay, so we just hit our limit switch. We want to look inside the nest here, basically at the expeller on the opposite side. We want the expeller panel to just about touch the back panel of the nest. We don't want it to put pressure on it, but we want it to almost touch. As you can see, the expeller panel is just about touching the nest back, but not putting pressure on it. Okay, so we've got our expeller panel in the position we want. As far as if it's not in the position you want and you need to move it a little bit, we've got 4 switches total. We have LS1, LS2, LS3 down here on the bottom side, and LS4 is on the bottom side over there. LS1 is our open limit switch. So the way I'll show it just from here, is the way you adjust the position of that is you just loosen these 2 nuts. This whole bracket slides one way or the other, and then you tighten it down so the trigger down here gets to be where you want it to be. So LS1 is our open limit. LS4, which is on the bottom side on the opposite side of where we're standing, is our closed limit. LS2 is a kill switch. So if that limit switch would happen to fail or slip for some reason, the kill switch LS2 will be a backup safety to shut the system down so it doesn't over travel. Same thing with LS3 on the bottom side for the opposite direction. So if for some reason the system does trigger a kill switch, the system will not run either direction on its own, or even in the manual position. If it's on a kill switch, it will not move. But if you need to get the system back operating, if you put the manual automatic switch in the manual position, put the open close in the switch position you want, and if you trigger the override, it will override the switches and allow to get it off the switches so you can reset your limit and kill switches. We're going to go ahead and focus on putting in our crossover here in the front of the barn. We do have to take a few bolts out, some of our self-threading bolts along the front rail, and also here the support and the Z rail. We're going to take those back out, we'll put those on, and then we'll show you what that looks like at that point. Okay, so we've taken things apart and put our rails back in place. We've got our outside rail here. It's kind of like a U channel, C channel. And then there's just an L. It's a sheet metal piece with a flange on the bottom attached on both sides. Our next piece that's going to go in, we're going to put a bolt in here. It's just a support from the two separate rails. We've got our outside bolted here. We're going to use a bolt, go through our flange here, through our support. We're going to put a center support in. So we're going to use the same bolt to attach our center support and the outside one to this upright. So So we've got all of our framework in for our crossover. We have got our slats that go in, plastic slats that go on top of this. They've got ears all the way around the slat on all the sides. I'm going to take that. I've already got the end over there on the other side in place. So I'm just going to catch that on those rails. Next one is a pre-cut one to fit in that same slot. I've got a pre-cut one for here. It's cut both ways. And then my last one is cut just shaved down a little bit. So we've got ears on this side, but this side is cut. Put the cut side to the outside. We're going to line our notches up together. Then the only thing left to do is it's just pieces of plastic. They go in, set into place. Ignore the holes that are in the slats here. That's for a secondary use for the slats. We're just going to line these up, and then we're using self-drilling screw. We're just going to use a impact with a nut driver on and run those in to hold these pieces in place. So we've got all of our pieces to cover up our seams laid out into place where they belong. You'll just add 2 screws to each one and you will be complete. We've got our expellers, the drives, everything is set. Our panels are tightened into place. The next thing that we want to do is we want to take this bracket. The hooks here will catch onto the wall over here. So we'll turn that upside down and put it in place. You're going to start out a little high on that slot and slide it down and click into place, and those fingers or whatever will grab and hold it into place. So we're going to take this bracket, they're going to set into that notch and just lock into place. The top side has the same fingers, a lot shorter piece. It's going to set into place and lock into place. All right, so now that we've got our roof or truss supports on our wall, we are going to take our truss. We're going to, if you do this with 2 people, it can be easier. We want to catch our tabs on the opposite side, catch our tabs here. You'll have to rock this bracket back just a little bit and then pull it down into place. So I've come to the opposite side, I'm getting it, rocked it back a little bit, locking it into place. Okay, so we've got our truss support on above our wall, but we also need a truss support out here in the middle of the nest system. So this bracket has 2 fingers which actually point down. So I'm going to take this bracket, fingers pointing out away from the middle of the system. We're going to catch them in our notch, slide them down. Now carefully go across the system, and we're going to do the same thing on this side. And it just sets roughly in the middle. So the next thing you're going to do once you have all of your trusses in place, this L bracket here, the L goes down and in, and there's just a small hole in the end that gets a hairpin clip to hold it in place. And you need one of those on the end of every truss. Okay, so once we have our trusses all in place, we need to put our nest front, the upper part of the nest front in. The flange goes to the top and to the inside of the nest. So we've got a slot here, slide right onto there and lock in. Opposite end just comes in, slide onto the tab, and it drops into a lock. We take our curtains, they're pre-notched. We're going to just slide them onto the tabs, and we're going to tuck them underneath the upper tab. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite side, but I'm going to show you in a different manner because it can be done this way. Some people for nest training will use the upper catch. That way the birds can see to get in easier, and then the ones that do this usually lower that later after the birds have learned to use the net. Okay, so our next step is putting our slats into place on top of our trusses. The VAL-CO on the top of the slat, whatever you start the front of the row with, you just need to match up, make sure that they match up, that they're laying the same direction. So in my case, I've already started. I'm going to turn that VAL-CO. For you, it's going to be upside down. So I'm going to set the slat into place. I'm going to make sure I catch the truss on this side in our groove. Just line that up. So the point of this bracket with the hairpin is just to keep that rooftop from sliding off the end of the truss. Every 5 nest holes or 10 top slats, we need an expansion joint put in for expansion and contraction of the plastic slatting. So again, every 5 nests or every 10 sections needs an expansion joint. And that just sets in place just like a regular slat does. It's just basically a slat cut in half with a joint in the middle for the expansion part of it. Okay, so once you're done working in the expeller section here, this panel just slips in here underneath these edges to stay in place, and that keeps the birds from sneaking in underneath the rooftop and into the expeller section. Okay, we're going to cover the crossover cover for the far back of the nest with our idler sprocket, our idler roller. We've got our side bracket here. We've got our holes in it. We use our self-threading bolts through there. The top is just notched. So we've got that in place. Gonna set this to the side. We've got 2 brackets inside here to help support. Yep, so we've added these extra brackets. This is a self-threading bolt. And our top bolt is the regular bolt with a lock washer and a nut. And then we use our self-threading bolt down here on the bottom into our cross arms to hold it into place. Both sides, every corner has one of those brackets in. Once the brackets are all in, plastic slat just slides onto our rail. Slide it all into place, and that's all there is to that.